fast. Here we are again. This is Cher.
And this is Jazz.
Fooled you.
Yeah.
Fooled you. Who's the drunk one now, huh? Anyway, this is Giving Up the Ghost podcast.
And we're here.
We're here, and you're there. Mm-hmm. And we're just here to quickly intro the next episode. Back in 2022, October, I took my birthday off. And what do I do for excitement on my birthday?
Woohoo!
I took a cemetery tour.
Sounds like a blast.
I know how to party, man.
That's right.
That's right. And that was at the Pineridge Cemetery, which is actually in Birds Hill Park.
Probably pretty quiet, eh?
Only the dead. Yeah. But you know, the funny thing is, like, Pineridge is like that whole Garven Rd area. That was Pineridge. It was a community, you know? Mm-hmm. And then the province bought it out, I want to say, in the 60s. I can't remember. It's in the episode. Mm-hmm. Lovely guide came. There was like 20 people that came out. And,
that's enough.
Yeah, it was back October 7th, I think.
Yeah.
That's my birthday. And guide came out with the province, gave a full tour. So not as much hauntings. I listened. There was nothing you could hear. Nothing got picked up. Lots of wind, and I do apologize. I tried to edit for the wind. That was hard. But it was interesting. Interesting history of the people, like the first homesteaders.
Yeah.
It was a hard life. Like
a lot of
the immigrants. Like, it was shitty land to farm. And they had all these wonderful
all
ideas.
Sloppy, crappy there.
Yeah, the rocks and everything.
Yep.
And they had all these great ideas, and it was hard living. And the guide even pointed that out a few times. Hard living. Mm-hmm. You had the prominent families and the not so prominent families. So it was really hard to make a living there.
Right.
So the cemetery was really cool, and it's so cool that the cemetery remains, and it's in Birds Hill Park. So that's
cool.
Even
weirder.
It is weird. So it was cool.
Is it marked off? I haven't been there.
It is. Yeah. It is marked off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's an active cemetery, but now
is it really?
It is. But now it's run by the Ukrainians in Cook Creek, I believe.
Oh,
that's what she said.
Yeah, Ukrainians.
First it was Polish, the Polish people. And then,
they're okay too.
Mighty whitey there. So in any event, listen to this episode. Very cool, and let us know what you think.
Enjoy.
And you just have an interest in this, sort of, or?
Well, I have a friend whose grandfather is buried here.
Oh, okay.
And I thought,
yeah, I had no idea this was here, actually. I had no idea the cemetery was actually in the park.
Yeah, I guess it must have started with the people who used to live.
The homesteaders, probably, right?
I would, I'm thinking they'll tell us that.
I'm hoping, yeah.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
All right.
Good. We're going to give it a couple more minutes in case some latecomers turn up. They've got a good 8 minutes left, and they'll arrive right at 1:30 on the dot, in my experience.
Of course. Are you okay if I record? Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
You had to do a lot of home research, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, loads. I was doing some this morning, actually. It's my main hobby.
Okay.
Awesome.
Are you folks out camping for the week or just in for the day?
Just for the day.
Oh, lovely.
Here for the day. I'm actually with Giving Up the Ghost podcast.
Oh, fun.
It's Winnipeg's first and only paranormal podcast. We've been doing it for 4 years. And
Wow.
last year we started doing cemetery tours, just on our own, just to appreciate stuff.
Yeah.
See if we catch any stuff. I mean, we're not hunters, even though I don't like using that term, but we just like sharing stories. And there's so many stories.
Oh, there's many, many ones.
So many stories, yeah.
And I live right nearby, so I figured I've got to find out what's happening.
Oh, of course.
Do you have a website? Just Facebook? Or?
Actually, I'll give you a business card. Would that be
that'd
okay?
be awesome.
Yeah, we're big on Facebook. Like, that's, this is a hobby, so we don't really do a lot social media-wise other than Facebook. We try Instagram and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So, actually, I'll give you a newer one. The older ones are kind of ugly. Would you care for a card? Sure. Sorry. Just a little. There you go. There you go. Would you care for a card?
Sure, yeah.
Don't feel obligated. There you go.
Thank you.
Hi there.
What is it?
We're Winnipeg's first and only paranormal podcast. So we've been doing it for 4 years, and I'm just on my day off, and I thought I'd check out the tour.
Sure.
If you care. Sorry. I'm not really here to advertise for us. I was just recording.
What is the podcast?
We share and collect stories of paranormal, haunted, ghost stuff in Winnipeg and Manitoba. We like to keep a lot of the legends going. Like, there's a lot of stuff you used to hear when you were kids or younger, and you don't hear them anymore, And we kind of want to just kind of keep things alive that are dead, so to say.
You got the fun.
Oh, I know. It's
Yeah, I'm a slaughter.
Oh, yeah.
So the Kulik, the Holowanis, the Malakas, all those
Yeah.
relatives.
Oh, interesting.
Are you?
Okay, it is 1:30, so anyone that shows up now is officially late, so I think we can get started. I'm Sabrina, one of the interpreters here in Birds Hill Provincial Park. How's everyone doing?
Very
Good. Has anyone wandered around the cemetery for fun before?
Yes, many times.
Some people have. So not everyone does, and that's fair enough, but it's something that I like to do when I travel. I'm a history buff, and cemeteries are a really valuable resource. They can teach you so much about a place, from the religion to last names to what resources they had on hand to language, and the stories of the people that are buried here. They're a fabulous tool for someone who likes to poke around local histories. Our cemetery here was founded around 1905. They're normally one of the first places a settler group will found, just because you can't really control when people die. You can choose when you get married. Other things are a little bit more fickle. So this comes a little bit later. Earlier settlers were buried out near Lockport and Cook's Creek. This one comes out of necessity. We'll talk about the origin story of this cemetery a little bit into the tour. Once we're done walking around, I have a scavenger hunt. So you can interpret headstones on your own. We're going to start with talking about some of the settlers that lived here. As we go through, this is an active cemetery. It's managed by the Cook's Creek Ukrainian Church, so please be mindful of where we're stepping. Don't kick over any headstones. I don't think anyone was planning on it, but be mindful of where you walk. So you guys can shuffle a bit more this way, too. Plenty of room. So this is the headstone of Thomas Novak. He was one of about 150 homesteaders in the area in the 1890s. So this was a mostly Polish and Ukrainian settlement. There were a handful of sort of English folks that settled in, but they were very much the outliers in the group. For the most part, everyone here came from Poland or Ukraine. And it was tough living out here. The ground was tough, farming was hard, and you were very remote. So from the 1890s all the way until the 1960s, no one here had plumbing or electricity, which meant when the Novak's house caught on fire, there was not much you could do about it. There was no fire department to call. You had to rely on your neighbors to rush to their wells, haul water, and then rush to their house. The Novaks lived right next to the school, so everyone was a little concerned with making sure the fire didn't spread next door. They made sure the school stayed intact, but unfortunately the Novaks lost everything in the fire in 1927. Luckily, they had friends in the city who actually donated furniture and clothing, and they rebuilt their house in a matter of months. So they stuck around to the winter, and Thomas is buried here now. We'll talk about these two headstones next, but the names are on this side, so we'll kind of loop around this way if you want to see their names. The layout here is a little hodgepodge. So we have Joseph and Frank Zadwarny here. They were two settlers in the area. Joseph was actually one of the founding members and the first school trustee of the Corona School District, which is unfortunately named today. So it actually was initially Hodgson School District, founded in 1913 when the province made education compulsory, and they suddenly needed schools in the area. At the time there were two. There was the Pineridge School, which would have been within the park. Corona School would have been just outside the park boundaries, sort of near where Burr Oak Trail is. They had about 60 students in the school, and it was a bustling little thing. And the rule for schools at the time was they had to be about 5 miles apart, so a district couldn't be longer than 5 miles because kids had to walk. So the old "I walked 5 miles uphill in snow" thing is actually coming from somewhere. The Corona School stuck around until about 1955 when the province consolidated it with the Oakbank School Division, or Springfield School Division. And then Leo Mull bought the schoolhouse, and that became his studio. So you can actually visit the Corona School in Assiniboine Park today. That big blue building in the sculpture garden is actually from here. The other school is actually down Nefarious Road. It's our interpretive workshop now. But that is a 1950s construction, not the original schoolhouse. So there were occasionally teachers that came out to the area to work, but they were mostly shipped out from Winnipeg, where they would have gone to school and they would have stayed in a sort of teacherage or a cottage, because the commute here would have been miserable every day. But for the people that lived in the area, they found work at the various industrial sites nearby. You could go work in a logging camp up north, or you could work in a gravel pit in where Birds Hill is today. So Frank Zadwarny was a gravel pit worker. He worked sort of in a gritty company, which would have been up north near Nefarious Road. This gravel was mined essentially to make some of the first roads in Winnipeg. Unfortunately, it was tough and dangerous work. Frank Zadwarny was killed at 26 years old when 8 feet of gravel collapsed on top of him. It was tough living, and a lot of people got hurt on jobs just like this. we're gonna go talk about these two headstones, the small one and the white one just there. The earliest burials in this cemetery were made of wood, so they are just no longer here. We think there might be 350 burials, but we can't know for sure. When prairie fires or high water comes through, those headstones wash away. A little bit later on, when the quarries start to open up, you have access to stuff like limestone. So the Zadwarnese headstones are both made of limestone, which you would get in places like Garson and Tyndall. But different material has different costs. You might go Tyndall, granite, marble's pretty pricey, and even once you've picked that out, you have to decide what you're going to say. Because they charge by the letter. So you pay a lot and you say a lot, you choose your words very, very carefully, and you say a little, or you do what these families did and carve them yourself. We see a number of hand-carved headstones throughout the park. This one over here, the Zaretsky's, some of it's engraved, some of it's painted. So you kind of make do with what you can afford or how you work around sort of financial restrictions. We'll head down this way and talk about Tony Spelcheck next. So this is the grave of Tony Spelcheck. He and his wife Tina had 12 kids, 10 of which survived into adulthood, and they kept those kids busy. If you've gone on any trail in Birds Hill, you probably noticed we have lots of berries growing right now. When it was berry picking season, the Spelchecks sent their kids out to the bush every day to come back with whatever berries they could find. There was one notable summer they picked 2 tons of choke cherries, close to 2,000 pounds. All of that was then sold to Winnipeg winemakers. If you tried to farm in the area around here, it's really tough. It won't grow much more than a handful of root vegetables to feed your family, so families found ways to put their kids to work to make money and sold stuff in Winnipeg when and where they could. And behind the Spelcheck grave, you can see these 2 headstones that say IHS on them. Those are very common in Christian cemeteries. It's a Greek abbreviation that stands for Jesus, Savior of Mankind. So you'll see those scattered around as well. We're going to go head this way and talk about Stan Kudlowick next. So this marble headstone is obviously newer. It's very glossy, it's nice, it's tall. The engraving is clearly done by a machine and not by hand, and it is the headstone of Stan Kudlowick. Has anyone been to the homestead in the park before?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. So that was his house. That is where Stan was born and raised until he was 7 years old. And then his family moved to Thunder Bay because there were better farming opportunities out that way. But Stan was very attached to Pineridge, and when he grew up, he frequently came out and made visits to the park. And then in the 1990s, we were looking at building the Pineridge Trail through the campground, and Stan was one of many Pineridge residents who came out to tell their stories to park staff. He's the reason we know so much about the homestead now, and why we've been able to set it up the way that we have. And he liked it so much, in fact, that he was buried here, and he's the only member of his immediate family to be so. His parents, his sister, they're all buried out in Thunder Bay. But Stan chose to stay here. And you can check out the homestead in the summer as well. We have it open until Saturday, so tomorrow and Saturday from 1 to 3. You can actually check out the inside of the house. We've set it up vaguely how Stan would have lived in it, so you can get a glimpse of 1930s Pineridge living. We'll go talk down in these headstones over here. So when you look around the cemetery, you can get a glimpse for which families were the most prominent or which surnames were the most common. So you can find a lot of Chernitzes in the Pineridge Cemetery. I'm from southern Manitoba, so you see a lot of Friesens out my way. But the stories here are all very interesting. The Chernitz family was so prominent, in fact, that they actually managed to form several 4-H clubs. So in 1950, the Pineridge Potato Club was founded. They were all about growing potatoes. They had Robert and Edward Chernitz. 6 people wasn't quite enough to make a full group though, so they joined forces with the Pineridge Sewing Club a year later. The Sewing Club had 20 members, so they bumped it up to 26. And then a couple years after that, they joined forces with the Pineridge Tractor Club. This made the Pineridge Sewing Potato Tractor Club, and they toured around to different 4-H fairs around the area. They actually went to Springfield Parade semi-frequently to show off. Once the park was expropriated in 1964, however, these 4-H groups were forced to disband, and the boys found 4-H clubs in less niche groups elsewhere in the area. We're going to head around this way into the aisle over here. So as we walk through the headstones, you can see wheat on a number of them. That's a pretty common motif in the Pineridge Cemetery because this was an agricultural community. Wheat symbolizes longevity and rebirth. It means someone's lived a long and full life. It is on many of the headstones. We've also got this pretty big gap between the 2 different aisles here. And one side is a bit different than the other. This side is a lot more organized, just every headstone's facing the same direction. There's not quite that hodgepodge that we walked through earlier. So when the cemetery was built around 1905, this was the Ukrainian Catholic side, and that was the Polish Catholic side. Over the years, they've sort of mixed and mingled a bit more, but the distinction was maintained for the first number of years of the cemetery's existence. The Polish side, the earlier graves, are a mix of Cyrillic and English. There's a lot more Cyrillic on the older headstones on this side, and everyone's facing east. So when the resurrection comes, everyone rises facing the sun. That's the reason for the big gap here. We'll head down this way and talk about the Bodners next.
These are my parents.
Oh, wonderful!
Oh, nice. Well, not nice, but
Well, they lived to 86 and 85, so they were blessed.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And many of the relatives here, the people buried here are relatives.
Oh, lovely. So a lot of family connections in the area.
Yes, yeah. Because they homesteaded right here.
Wow, how long did they homestead in Pineridge for?
Well, they came here in 1903, 1904. But as you said, they were farmers, and they really, I wouldn't say duped, but thought they could continue because they were short of land and wood in Ukraine. And when they came here, they had the wood, but they couldn't farm. So on the periphery of the park are slotas, because as soon as they could earn enough money, they purchased arable land elsewhere.
Yes.
Yeah. So we lived right at the northeast corner of the park.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah,
right on the
because-
boundary, yeah.
Yeah, on Park Road, because then it was no longer sandy soil.
Yes.
And that's where I grew up.
Yeah, it's a smart move. I can't imagine anyone living sort of in this area had an easy time.
Not
with
that
it.
were farmers.
No.
Yeah.
So we'll go talk about
Sorry
the
for
Bodners. Thank you
oh
for
no, very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
So on the note of people finding ways to make money that aren't farming, Fred and Frances Bodner were actually the store owners in Pineridge. They built the general store around 1937 with the help of Fred Kantoruk, who was a local carpenter, blacksmith, and briefly a butcher. He was the local jack of all trades. The store was also their family home. They kept animals out back, and they lived in the storefront itself. But this was the place to go if you needed canned goods. If you were a kid and you wanted candy, they had just a row of jawbreakers up on a shelf. You could buy 10 jawbreakers for 1 cent, which is a pretty sweet deal if you're a kid that's good at saving money. And there were a handful of jobs available, at least for teenage boys. If you were old enough and willing to trek all the way down to the Pineridge Golf Course, you could work as a caddy for about 20 cents a round with a tip if you were lucky. So you could save up and get a lot of jawbreakers if you really, really wanted to. For the adults, they sold stuff like flour and baking goods, and they also offered company. When the store was closed for the day, Fred would often have people come by for a round of cards. Their game of choice was King Pedro, and the loser of King Pedro bought everyone a Coke. This would cost about 7 cents at the time. The store did so well that Fred was one of the first members of Pineridge to own a truck. This was a big deal in the 1930s and 40s because everyone else had a horse and buggy, and getting to Winnipeg was well over a day's excursion. That truck made it very easy, and he suddenly became everyone's go-to taxi service. So he charged a quarter unless it was an emergency. He also owned the only thresher in Pineridge. So threshing is a farming thing where you're separating the wheat from the chaff. Essentially what it is you're beating grain with sticks until it cracks. This is backbreaking work, it is not fun, and a thresher makes it a lot easier. And when you are the only one in town with one, you become the most popular man in town at harvest season. So every harvest, Fred would take his farm, or his thresher from farm to farm to farm to farm to make sure everything got done in time. They were beloved members of the community until the park was bought out, and then they were buried here a number of years later. We'll go talk about someone who had a less easy time settling in Pineridge, the Pisker family down this way. John and Eva Pisker had a terrible time just getting to Pineridge. When they immigrated over on the boat, their life savings was stolen. This was only $866, but it was a good chunk of money at the time. And it meant John had to work digging sewers in Winnipeg for 15 cents an hour for a number of years before they could actually even buy a property out here. And they buy their property, and they find that it's about 20 acres of basically uncleared land. And the land is sandy, it is covered in rocks and trees, and clearing it is difficult work. So they clear up a couple of acres, and to do so, John buys out a team of horses. But then he finds out that actually feeding horses is pretty expensive, and a buddy of his tells him that oxen need to eat a little less, so he sells his entire team of horses and buys a team of oxen, and then finds out oxen move really slowly, so he sells his team of oxen and buys another team of horses. They get the land cleared, and clear the last 5 acres or so. John winds up hiring some men to help clear it up. And they do so, but they duped him in the process. They cleared the land, they cut down the trees, but they didn't dig up the stump, they just covered them in dirt. So if you're then dragging your plow across the dirt and it hits that stump, there goes your expensive farm machinery. They stayed here until the park was bought out, and they're buried here as well, but not everyone had as easy a time as the Bodners making a living. It was tough out here. We'll talk about the founding of the cemetery next, down by this little headstone over. The founding of the Pineridge Cemetery is actually something of a love story, oddly enough. So before the cemetery was here, people were buried elsewhere in Gonar, in Cooks Creek, wherever there were nearby cemeteries that matched their religion. So when Eva Bodner died in 1903, she was buried out at the Holy Trinity Ukrainian Church just south of Lockport on Highway 9. And this is a time when Winnipeg's or Manitoba's roads were either terrible or non-existent. So getting out to that cemetery was a full-day trip through swamp and bog and bush in a horse and buggy. And Eva's husband, Ivan, wanted to go visit her grave. So he talked to the Roscoe family who owned the land that we're on now and talked about donating a chunk of it to serve as the town cemetery. The Roscoes agrees. This little plot of land is created as the local cemetery. And in 1905, Eva's mother passes away and is buried near where we're standing with a wooden headstone that has since burned away. We don't know exactly where it was. And then in 1913, Ivan builds an identical headstone to his wife's right here. So this is what his wife's headstone looks like at the Holy Trinity Church. It is basically the same. The inscription is also almost word for word identical. It says, "Here lies God's servant," or God's slave. It is done by hand. The one at the Holy Trinity Church, he actually wrote the word God too big, so the G is on the top row and then the rest is on the bottom. A classic thing we've all done before. The one difference is this says Ivan, and the other one says Eva. This grave is also empty. Ivan's not actually buried here, because Ivan remarried. And his wife did not bury him in the matching headstone, she buried him here. This is where Ivan Bodner is actually buried. So this headstone is partially why we have the cemetery we do today. Our last story is this headstone right here. It's our most salacious Pineridge story by far. I was wondering about this one also. It's not cracked because of vandalism. Water done into the headstone a number of years ago, and over the years the moisture would freeze and then unfreeze and crack and then crumble, and that's why it is the way it is. Repairing headstones, you need to have to contact the family. Not everyone has an easily reachable descendant, so here it stays. This one, in remarkably good shape, is the grave of Michael Perch, and he has the unusual distinction of being Pineridge's only murder victim. So, in 1917, Michael Perch was on his way to a nearby store when he was intercepted by a neighbor of his, Julian Hetman. A number of weeks ago, Hetman had lent Perch some money. It was about $1.25, and Hetman wanted it back, and Perch didn't want to pay him. So a fight broke out on the road, and somewhere in the scuffle, Hetman's sight fell on Perch's head. Both would claim the other started the fight, because Perch actually survived the initial incident and survived from August until September, when he eventually died of sepsis from his wounds. Both on the other started the fight. No one could agree who was at fault, but right before Perch passed away, he admitted that maybe he was a little too aggressive with Hetman. But because he died, the whole thing had to go to trial in Winnipeg, and it caused quite the stir in the city because Perch's widow fainted on the stand. The lawyer had held up Perch's hat for the day of the incident and hadn't bothered to check, and part of Perch's skull was still stuck to the inside of it.
Boy.
So she fainted.
No doubt.
Against all odds, despite multiple eyewitnesses, Hetman's actually cleared of all charges because the Pineridge residents that came out to Winnipeg all testified that Michael Perch was quarrelsome by nature and probably brought the fight onto himself. So there's a number of fun stories or interesting stories tucked away that tell tales about the area and people that struggled and people that thrived and life and death and all of the fun things in between. They're a great way to learn about an area, and if you want to be buried here, it's actually very tough. It's a very exclusive cemetery. The only way to be buried there now is to prove you are related to a Pineridge settler. If you are not, you cannot get in. But if you would like like to explore on your own, we have our scavenger hunts here, and you can go see what some other symbols mean on our headstones.
I'll follow you ladies.
Okay.
The laminated ones, yeah. Actually, I printed a bunch
Angel,
of
dove, heart.
But was it on the headstone or was it?
You've had there's an angel on the headstone.
Aw. Just a baby. And it says the meaning angels signify that the departed has taken flight into heaven. I think it probably would be. I would think.
Because I know the Genealogical Society does. They'll send people out and do
Right.
grave.
A heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah. That looks like a heart. And what is the meaning of the heart? Does it say?
A symbol of life, love, or immortality.
Interesting. And it's a literal heart, hey? You know, not like the lovey-dovey type, right?
Yeah.
So
It's like, it looks like it's got a
ventricles and all that kind of
chain. Yeah.
interesting.
I love going through cemeteries.
Me too. There's an interesting in Winnipeg Beach, and we went out this summer because I had taken a friend the year previous, and I'd seen something that was odd. So we went back with my husband and took a picture, and you've got Mary, Jesus's mom, Virgin Mary, sorry, and the next grave beside it must have been like a sailor or something, because it's like a half-naked woman all in red, and I'm like, whoa, I'm sure that didn't go over too well with those families, And we're looking for what next? That's an
We
old
found
one.
the heart and the angel. We're looking for a dove, grapes, a lamb.
To the bottom and take a picture of that was kind of cool. Like they had their actual picture, hey?
Yeah.
Doves. And what was the explanation of the dove?
An ascending dove represents the transport of the departed soul to heaven. A dove descending represents a descent from heaven, assurance of a safe passage.
Interesting. Very cool. Because a lot of them were farmers, so you would put wheat, right?
You know what I've noticed? Is the wheat is more on this side than on this side.
Oh, okay.
There is some on here,
Yeah.
but I noticed more of it on these ones.
Interesting.
Here's the little lily.
Oh, was there a lily as well?
Yeah.
What's the lily's explanation?
The lily represents the innocence, purity, and chastity of the Virgin Mary.
Oh.
I still think it's that.
It could be.
Look at the picture on that gravestone. That's quite clear, hey?
Yeah. There's different crosses too. They're on the back of that. If you look on the back, there's 3 different crosses.
So we have Latin, we have Greek, and then we have botany.
Behind the one with the statue there.
Grapes, meaning the grapes of the gravestone are symbolic of the blood of Christ being shed for all mankind. Christ himself introduced the idea of wine being a symbol of the blood. Last Supper, lamb, meaning representation of youth and innocence, and is typically found in the gravestones of children. Laurel wreath, it says here, meaning representation of victory or fame. I've never heard that before. Lily, we saw a rose, meaning indicate the grave of a child, or partial bloom was used to show someone who had died in his or her teen, early adult life, or cut short, and a full bloom signified someone in the prime of life. Rosary, we know that. Virgin. We did one of our episodes we did last year. We were on hiatus a bit just because with COVID, and me and my partner, we like to be in the same room when we record. And one of the things we talked about was cemetery, like the do's and the don'ts, and like superstitions and.
I don't know. Maybe it's got one date. I don't know if they would still be
Somebody's coming.
still coming.
If they're not buried somewhere else. Well, thank you for your time. It was quite interesting, and thanks for letting me record it.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll use this as an episode probably after Halloween.
Oh,
and,
cool.
Yeah. So thank you. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Appreciate your wealth of knowledge.
That's what I'm here for.
For sure. Have a great day.
You too.
There is one down there.
Yeah, there's some lilies too. It's harder to tell with the flowers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't speak for this cemetery. cemetery, but I know when me and my dad years ago, we have ancestors out in St. Francis Xavier, and there's a whole section where there's no stones, but that's because back in the early 1900s, like you said, the wooden markings got all burnt down with the grass fires. So unless the church there kept records, you'd never know.
Yeah, and it's changed management from churches over the years. This used to be the Greek Catholic Church.
Oh, okay.
Managed it. Now it's Cook's Creek Ukrainian Catholic
Right.
Church, so it's different management than it was in 1905 too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, was the angel in the corner over there?
Yes, I mean there's lots of angels, but yeah, you can do any one of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
No,
For sure.
It helps you people looking around on their own.
Yeah. Well, ladies, thanks for letting me be in your third wheel. That was great.
no
Appreciate
problem.
that. Yeah, it was nice meeting you. I hope you enjoy your day. And
On Facebook.
sure.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, we are a little obnoxious. We do swear, and you know, we have a good time. We drink a little.
My ears.
Well, I mean, it's you know.
I was married to a mechanic. I mean,
There you go. But I mean, you know what? Like, we talk about some pretty dark, serious, grim stuff. So we like to try and make light of some stuff. Like, we've had people that tell us about attachments and shadow figures and like the whole gamut. And this is all happening here, you know. So
Okay.
yeah, but it's still we're enlightening people,
All
letting
right,
people
I'll
know
keep that in mind.
what is happening. Yeah. What's your name again? Amber. Amber and Susan. Amber and Susan and
Sabrina.
Sabrina. Well, thank you, ladies. I'm Jazz, by the way. So I have to go. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.
And we're back.
Cool.
Wow. Like time traveling, man.
That was excellent.
What an excellent episode. One of the best ever.
Yeah, for sure.
5 stars. Anyway, so we're just doing some intros and outros. That
Yeah.
was the Pineridge Cemetery tour. Very cool. If you ever get a chance, I would highly suggest checking it out. It was actually a lot of history. Really cool.
Do they have is it a scheduled event? Oh,
Yeah,
it is.
if you go to the
Okay.
provincial website, I'm not too sure. I went on the last one that they had in the fall. Again, this was 2022. It was an older episode we had kicking around. I finally got around to editing it, and there it is. So hope you enjoyed that one. And remember, we have our Spirits with Spirits coming May 30th. Check us out at the Little Brown Jug. Thank you so much to our partners in crime, which is the Winnipeg Paranormal Group and Ravens End Books.
Oh,
The alcohol
you're
is
like,
wearing
I was
off.
just gonna say that.
On it like mustard on ham.
That
you
was
know?
good.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So thank you for listening to us. We've had like a really good session today. Got some ramble-sodes. We love the ramble-sodes.
They're cool.
Love. Check out our videos on YouTube that I've been putting together based on AI generated on our ramble-sodes pretty much.
AI is cool.
Yeah, within reason.
Yeah, I
You know,
like it.
If you could just do the dishes, I mean, that'd be even
Oh,
better.
shit,
But, you know, I'm sure it's going to get there.
You can't have the rest
You
of that.
can't have my
Go
taco
ahead.
chip. I'll eat the taco chip in a sec.
Right.
So check us out on Facebook for more details for May 30th. So that's really about it. We're going to peace out at this point, and thank you for listening to us. And where do they email
Where
us?
find us? I feel like I'm like Kurt
Hill, right? That's what I felt like. I felt like that was where you'll find us. Oh no, that's the bed guy. You'll find us.
We left our mattress making machine
Does
on
it almost
too
sound
long.
does it almost sound like a threat? You'll find us. I didn't know you were lost, buddy.
No.
Anyway, where's that at?
Givinguptheghostpodcast at gmail.com.
Excellent. So live every day like it is your last.